Welcome to Screen Chat on RiotRadio.ca. I'm your host, Justin. With me today behind the scenes, we have Eldin.
Hello.
Thank you, Eldin, for being here. And, oh man, I'm getting goosebumps because as you could hear from that opening theme there, and maybe you could tell by the shirt that I'm wearing, we're finally talking about X-Men. But don't forget, Screen Chat is your show all about the latest Marvel movies, DC Comics, stars, adaptations, and much, much more. But like we previewed there, today is finally our grand finale X-Men episode. So for the fans of the show, throughout the last couple months, we have been discussing X-Men 97 week by week, what we thought about the episodes, all that good jazz. And then with the finale episode, it was actually cut into 3. So we thought we would give it a bit of a break on the X-Men talk. So we gave it 3 weeks for the episodes to drop. And then this week we just gave it, you know what, we'll let everyone finish, catch up. So it's been about a month, Eldon, since we talked about X-Men. So I'm very happy to be back talking about it.
I really hope we've given people enough time to watch it. Like, realistically,
Yeah.
you could watch the entire season just today if you had to. So we're going to talk about the final episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, pause the episode, go watch it, then come back. Because it is, I'm going to say, probably our best. I would go out on a limb and say the best animated anything I've seen in the last 10 years.
Yeah, honestly, that's not a bad shout at all. On that note, like Eldon said, spoiler warning, it begins now. So if you're still here on the website, the Instagram story, whatever it is, just get out now because we're jumping right into it.
We still need that button. It's like a spoiler.
I know. But yes, to relay on your point, I will say, as a superhero fan, I can't recall anything animated that I thought was better. I really can't. And it hurts to say that like season 1 is finished, but we'll give you guys a briefing. So we had a 3-part finale, like I said. So we're going to just dive in real quick just to episode 9 of that finale. So Professor X is back at this point, and Magneto just had enough. There's
the fact that Professor X crashes into the mansion.
I know, it's like
he couldn't have landed any better. He actually just fires in.
It's so jokes, but pretty much now we know Bastion's the villain because at this point you guys are caught up. So Bastion has been revealed to be the be-all end-all villain. Who is like a hybrid human sentinel type of project. And with that being said, we're like, okay, cool. What's the next move? Well, he has programmed a lot of humanoid sentinels, I think is what they were called.
Yeah,
Prime
they're kind of like Nimrod,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't transform. They just kind of activate. And
Yeah.
like, he argues that they've all kind of chosen this path and they all hate mutants, but there's also people that don't hate mutants that are.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been kidnapping them with Sinister as well. So he argues that it's what the humans want, but it's really not what the humans want.
Yeah, amen. So that being said, Professor Charles Xavier is doing his little... And now, you know what? Just to give you guys a background here, I grew up with the X-Men, and I've always been like the kind of guy that like I could hear out Professor X. I think Magneto's a lot cooler. But this is the only instance, maybe it shows my age, that I've thought Professor X is just tripping. Like, this guy is just... He's not really on it today, if I'm going to be honest with
Well, here's
you.
the big thing, too, right? So he's coming back from the Shi'ar nation. He comes back to his X-Men in shambles. And I'm pretty sure Magneto knew that he wasn't dead.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Magneto understood. Like, he's like, you left me this as like kind of like my way of changing who I am. And Scott's not happy. It's just a mess. And it's like, again, it's like too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, I couldn't put it better myself.
Yeah.
So once Professor X returns, like Eldon said, Scott isn't too happy, so he kind of presses him. He's like, there's no way you left this for Magneto and not me. And then Professor X pretty much is like, well, you know what? You guys fought to save the world. I want you guys to live in the world you fought to save. And it's like, they were like, Jean and Scott were like, there's no way we would ever do that. You know, there's no way we'd ever just abandon our family just because, like, we finally want to be at peace. And, like, this is why, you know, Professor X for me was just one of the not worst written characters of the show, but in terms of like what he provided to the plot and the X-Men, probably the worst character of the show. Hot take. So with that being said, Magneto's pretty much like, look, you know what? We don't want this. We don't want to continue to fight for the humans. We're trying to like be the mutants, yo. Like, we had Genosha, they took that from us. We're done feeling bad for them.
Which I want to correct myself. Okay, Genosha is a place in the comics. I just have I've never heard of it, and like whenever I see it, because it does get destroyed in the comics as well. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't even entirely wrong, because there is different adaptations of the mutant homeworld, anyways. But with that being said, Magneto kind of gives the first class speech, and it's like, look, man, y'all got to join me. Like, I'm done with this. And we have a couple mutants that do step up. We had This is a good photo actually that we're gonna pull up here. We had Magneto, Rogue, and Miguel.
Roberto.
Sorry,
You think Roberto?
Roberto.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I don't know who I'm. Oh, you know what? I watched Cobra Kai this morning.
Yeah.
That's what it
But I
is.
think he comes what he's called Sunspot. That's what he
Sunspot.
calls himself. Yeah.
Yeah, so with Sunspot specifically, I'm not familiar with this whole character at all, period. I didn't even get the guy's name right. Roberto Miguel, I don't know what I was thinking there. However, this shot is amazing because you see the three of them, and then you also see Asteroid M behind, which is like like peak X-Men right
And
there.
at this point as well, Magneto's thrown off the entire polarity and turned
yep.
off, and just completely wiped out all electricity on planet Earth.
Yeah,
So
yes.
now we're between a spot where it's either going to be like it's Magneto being like the humans can just deal with it, and then it's also like he's poised to just drop Asteroid M.
Yeah.
So it's also like it's kind of like manifesto.
Yeah, it's pretty mad. And like just to relay on that point too, like the vibes and aura of Asteroid M are like second to none. I don't know what it is, but like watching the scenes with Asteroid M, it's just nuts. And so even on Asteroid M, which I think is hilarious, Magneto's throne is like a sentinel that's destroyed.
It's a sentinel hand.
A sentinel
it's
hand,
so
yeah.
Cool. It's a sentinel hand that he sits in. Like it's honestly amazing. I wish we had a picture of the throne.
I
It
know,
looks
I
so
should've got
good.
one.
So
Yeah, so it's nuts. So eventually after this, the X-Men infiltrate Asteroid M. And you know what? It's not looking good for Magneto because the X-Men, they're doing their thing. They're able to fight. And then, you know what? We had a moment of truth. Professor X was doing his mind trick to Magneto, and it was Scott that stopped him.
which is
Hit him
so,
with the blast. It
I
was so
hate
good.
Scott.
It was so
I
good.
hate Scott.
I'm like, I'll die on the hill. I really like Scott, and I thought that was like his crowning moment right there. That was like the man turned into, or the boy turned into a man, and it was so good. He's like, no, they still need more time, sir, as he's like blasting him. I was like, oh my god, it was like
Yeah,
right
it's-
there.
You know what? Scott's a villain. I don't like Scott at all.
And so after that, we get a scene where it's Wolverine's time, who's been kind of in the shadows of the whole show, and he stabs through Magneto. There's blood. We were gonna get a photo of that specifically. It was a bit too graphic, and he's like, he's like, I've been in many wars, but the brave are always the first ones to die. And then it was like, oh man, Magneto after that was like, oh, this is how we're playing, and he's like, Logan, this rivalry is over. And then he does the unthinkable and rips the adamantium out of his body, just like in the comic books. This is 1-to-1 of the pages, and oh man, Eldin and I, we watched all these episodes together at the studio here with Evan and Dan. The reaction to this was nuts.
How is Magneto alive? Like that? Like Wolverine stabbed him right in the chest. You can see on Magneto the hole that Wolverine put in there, and nothing.
Adrenaline, man, I guess.
I guess.
But
Yeah.
it was nuts because I was like, oh my god, we killed Magneto, it's done. And then when he just snapped, he's like, oh, we're playing it like by this now, like we're going for the kill, say no more. And he just wiped him out. And honestly, I will say Wolverine growing up was one of my favorite characters. And I think that in this series, he was on the B side of things, which is totally fine because you know what? We've seen X-Men movies, we've seen Wolverine movies, we've seen shows called Wolverine and the X-Men. So I thought it was good that we got other characters, like it was their chance to shine, I should say. So the fact that like his best moment, well, one of his best moments, I should say, was I guess him in demise and in defeat, I was okay with that. We've seen this guy stand tall in 10 different films, multiple video games, multiple TV shows. It was okay that he kind of fell this time around because I've seen this guy win and beat the villain pretty much every time I've watched this guy in some shape or form. So were you happy that they kind of went this route and they got rid of Wolverine on episode 9?
I mean, my thing is too, right? Like he played such an integral role. So I'll go back to the picture just to show like he was gonna do what needed to be done.
Yep.
In this episode alone, you see both Professor X and Wolverine saying, I know how to do this. Like Professor X is like, I'm gonna take over your mind, Magnus. I'm gonna take over your mind, and that'll be that.
Yep.
And Wolverine stabbing Magnus was the best part because at this point, Professor X has been like, the helmet's been put on his head, so he can't use his telepathy at all.
Oh man,
And
that
now
was
he's
so
being
good.
like, held up by like a claw machine that Magneto had created. So Wolverine stabbing him was the biggest part of that because then it got him to do this, and everyone kind of stopped fighting.
Yeah, it
everyone
was
stopped
nuts.
fighting. Was like, oh my god. Huge part. I think it's like again, it shows that Wolverine, Professor X, and Magnus are not afraid to go the path of of what needs to be done, and it kind of shows they're all kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That was
So-
a great explanation. And it's cool too because, like, not to legit say everything that you just said, but it is like when you look at the X-Men universe, like the immediate universe, there are probably only 3 characters that would do that, and it is those 3. And I feel like, you know, it's kind of an attribute to the characters in X-Men First Class when you had Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, and then obviously Hugh Jackman. It was like the first character that they recruited was Wolverine. And then obviously, you know, they don't get Wolverine. Then later on, they backtrack to it, and it's like, well, Wolverine now needs their help, and they're like, no, you could like get out of here. So it's kind of cool, their character dynamics in every form of X-Men media, with the main one probably being that, because you know, with the other X-Men movies, I feel like they weren't as on screen as much, like, I guess, to put it just blunt, they weren't as civil on screen. You know, they weren't on speaking terms. They weren't about just having a talk or like going for a walk. But then when you see them in this adaptation where Wolverine and Magneto are on the same side for a bit, then you see the flashbacks with Charles and Magnus when they were kids, or sorry, I guess young men. It's cool to see the different dynamics that you're not usually used to seeing. First Class is like a one-off because they don't do that again. So yeah, I did really enjoy that. You could kind of see their character dynamics and developments, I guess, developing throughout the series. So I thought that was good. Ooh, my bad. I guess that was my Magnus powers chiming in there? Because oh my days.
Seems like it.
But
then this is the big thing too. So I'm gonna put the next picture so we can talk about it, because now we have the fight between brothers. And I'm pretty sure this episode was titled "The Newton Brothers." Or like you saw that pop up, which is also the Newton Brothers are the guys who did all the music for X-Men. Like,
Yes.
all this X, so it's fantastic. But you see this beautiful fight scene between Professor X and Magneto, and for once, Professor X is like, you know what? I'm tired of doing things, you know, the right and proper way. I will force you to fix the poles, and I will force you. And then they're all like, if you do that, you might get lost in his mind too and be gone. You both be gone. And he's like, so.
yeah, legit.
I'll save the world.
It was
I'll have to.
Yeah, it was nuts because Professor X doesn't really do that, like Eldin was saying. But it was interesting to see this point of view because I don't agree with Professor X in the series. I really don't. But the way he did things was like so cool, and I'm like, as the Joker would say, gotta give the boy points, you know? Like it was cool. I haven't really seen him do something like that, and he always refrains to do it on someone like a Magneto or a Mystique. He doesn't really like to go into their minds like that. And then even in this scene, Magneto does say to him, "Get out of my mind, Charles," as they're just reminiscing throughout the past. And you really see Magneto kind of come into his own in this, I guess, mind state. We have other photos that I think we'll pull up soon of Magneto, because it was interesting. It was really trippy. I can't lie, Eldon. Before we like do like a deep dive, have you ever really seen Magneto in the state? Because it kind of tripped me out, to be honest.
I mean, we've seen Magneto kind of been broken down before. So the next picture we have in the lineup is this in his mind, and this is kind of the most important people in his life.
Yep.
So you see this entire floodgate. He's having this flashback where he can't remember his parents. He can't remember his parents' face. He can't see them.
He's like, why can't I see them? Why can't I see
also
their
again,
faces?
so this is so Charles. I guess we'll just fill this in. Charles uses his powers to force Magneto to fix the poles. That then makes it so we have kind of Magneto losing his memory and being kind of lost himself. So Charles is trying to build his memory back because Charles doesn't want him to be destroyed. He did what he had to, but he also doesn't want to have it the way it is. So he's trying his best to build back up Magneto and help him. So this floodwater's rising, and the floodwater is like showing us his grief, showing us all the pain he's gone through, because he's gone through so much. He's not in a good place. He lived through the Holocaust. He's lived through so much trauma, and now he's having to relive it all again. But it's also a nice way where he's kind of like, Professor X is kind of forcing Magneto to deal with it as well, and finally face it. So you have Rogue, you have you have Polaris, you have Wanda and Pietro,
so
and
good.
His 3 kids who we haven't seen, but we know they have to be around. Rogue, who we see how really important she is to Magneto. It's so big and it's so incredible. It's in a very powerful scene as well, because again, like, they're drifting away, and Magneto's kind of like, I'm alone, and Charles is like, you're not alone. I'm here with you, and if you're going down, I'm going down with you. And it's a really powerful scene to show how much Professor X cares. So very important, and like there's so much going on. I guess the kind of pictures we have here, like it's a lot to be. The next picture is again Magneto, but there's so much going on in the story too at the same time.
Yeah.
At this point, the Earth government launches rockets at Asteroid M,
Yep.
because they're like, okay, we have to crash it down, which then causes Asteroid M to fire towards the sea, or towards Earth, which is going to wipe out like the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And they're like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. It'll break up an atmosphere. And at this point too, you also have like just a quick little. I'm going to mention the cameo of like Captain America being like, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, give them time. Like, you know, the X-Men are up there, and the president's like, nope, we have to.
Yeah, it was insane. It was really cool to see not just the X-Men, but the Earth in this kind of state.
Yeah.
I don't think I could recall to like, I guess, a Marvel movie and project, and I don't know if this is a hot take, where I was so emotionally attached to the universe, like the Earth.
Maybe Age of Ultron.
Maybe.
But like, because that was so much going on there. But like, yeah.
I think with this, that was so cool is that you have Magneto's story on one end, you have the Earth itself, you have the Captain Americas of the world, you also have the rest of the X-Men. It's like there's so many people to hold on to, and you don't really want to choose one over the other. Obviously, I did mention that I'm Team Magneto, if anything. However, when you look at it from like a certain point of view, there's not really a wrong answer, as they say. And I think that's like the coolest part about this, because the show didn't necessarily, like, besides the humans at the start, but the show didn't necessarily tell you who was right or who was wrong. You kind of had to interpret that and come up with that decision yourself, if you're a Team Magnus or Team Charles. And I think towards the end, you were just all on one big team, and that was Team Mutant.
And I think that's the point, right? Like, it's like there isn't a Team Magnus and a Team Charles, because their ideals align to the point where they should be not fighting each other. And at this point, like, the asteroid's crashing down towards Earth. It's a huge thing. And then we get this amazing shot of Magneto waking up.
Oh, man.
And
it was
I love
so good.
Charles in his combat gear. Like, Charles in like a combat suit. He lost the wheelchair. He's had to be carried around by Beast. And Magneto's like, you know what? You've kind of proven to me that the Earth deserves another chance. And it's huge. It's a really important spot to be at. But also, during all of this, is another character that is rampaging. And also Magneto, Charles awakening Magneto again and like causing the power to turn back on, also woke up all the Sentinels again. So all the Sentinels are now attacking.
Yep.
So we have this cool flash. Like, I don't think we have the picture, but like it shows the Russians with Crimson Dynamo and Omega Red fighting. And it shows all these other characters fighting all these, like, well, we'll get to the cameos in a bit, but like, that's the one we missed, was Omega Red.
Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I forgot about that one.
I love Omega Red.
Yeah.
Then we get this awesome shot of
man.
New Age Bastion. So just kind of like rewind what had happened. Mr. Sinister shows up. He has control of Cable. Cable and Jean Grey fight. Jean Grey is like drowning. She wakes up as the Phoenix. She destroys the red gem on Cable. She kind of traps Bastion and like holds him in a place. They fight a Sentinel. At one point, it's hilarious too when like when Bastion like, looks up and the Sentinel coming towards him, he's like, "You're all done," and the Sentinel just steps on him, and it's like, "Oh, okay."
The Beast.
Yeah, the Beast pops out, and like Forge and Storm have been shot down, but they're still alive. There's so much going on in the episode, and now Cable and Jean Grey, who's now the Phoenix, is fighting Sinister and Bastion, and Sinister loses his powers, which it's a red herring.
Yeah,
Sinister's gonna be fine.
Yeah, there's also so many Sinister
He's
clones
got so many
too.
clones.
Yeah.
And then Bastion kind of says, you know, enough is enough, and then evolves into this monstrosity. He looks like Archangel.
He does kind of, yeah. He like rips off Cable's magnetic arm and just I guess absorbs it and then turns into that. It was insane. And now Bastion's on course for Asteroid M, and we see him take on the X-Men in like a bit of a brawl. It was so hard to find images for that. I was kind of annoyed.
Is so strange.
It's like it's been out for so long. That's also another reason why we waited, because we figured by now a week and a half later it wouldn't be hard to get content, but it was hard to find it. So I didn't have a lot of photos for that one specifically, but you had like Eldin mentioned, you did have a Sentinel coming down and it just steps on Bastion, and then emerges I believe it's Beast and Jean Grey. Is it Jean Grey?
Forge, Storm, like the whole crew.
Yeah,
they all just pop out, and like the big thing is too, Bastion and Rogue go at it. And Rogue like breaks his jaw and his arms are ripped off and they're backwards, and he just reconstructs.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And the entire thing is he wants to get to the Magneto like graviton thing, which is then going to cause Asteroid M to explode and kill all of them, and also damage the Earth. And he basically says, you know, like I've I've lost the war, so I will just end it. And
legit.
he's going to.
Yeah, it was going like it was going so well for him until it wasn't. And then this is what I thought was pretty funny. So you had all the X-Men lined up, ready to just fight Bash. And I'm like, dude, this is gonna be sick. And then this is why I could appreciate character development. Okay, if I'm a little kid, I'm annoyed at this scene, but as like an adult, I could fully understand it. Scott's like, dude, we're not gonna fight you. Like, we're gonna do talk no jutsu, and it was annoying. It was
so bad.
But when
it didn't work.
Well, it kind of did.
No, it didn't. Like, it didn't work because then like he's like, you're not gonna do this to me.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. It didn't work. It
Yeah.
didn't work. But they were like, why would we fight the future? We need to embrace it. They offer him a spot on the team. And then doesn't he say something like, I just tried to destroy all of you and now you're recruiting me?
Yeah,
It's
and then
kinda
also like
funny.
he's like my mom came to you and you said no, and they're like, no, she didn't. Your mom came. My Professor X came to your mom and your mom said no. He's
Yeah.
like, she would never do that. And it's like, honey, you're Master Mold and Nimrod's baby. Like, how do you not
Yeah.
understand what's going on here?
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought it was cool because they could have just destroyed him and blown him up to bits. But then, like Scott and Storm made, it's like they just regressed. They wanted to try and be the bigger people and embrace the future.
Yeah, and at this point too, like Professor X and Magneto are down. Like, they're still like, and Logan's out of the fight too. So Morph's out of the fight. Morph's with Logan because Morph loves Logan. Yeah, it is what it is.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so jokes.
And then so like Morph and Logan are like in the ship. Magneto and Professor X are in the ship. They're doing this whole thing where like they're doing that whole thing. So there's so much fighting going on here. And then we get like an unlikely. I'm gonna put up the next picture. We get like an unlikely duo,
Yeah.
which is Jubilee and Nightcrawler. So like at this point, Bastion's fought Rogue, Sunspot, and I think it's just actually Rogue and Sunspot at this point. And
Yep.
like he's like incapacitated both of them. And Jubilee and Nightcrawler are really just like I did not expect Jubilee to do as good as she did.
Yeah, she did really well. And
Yeah.
you know what? It was funny because like didn't he say something along the lines of like, what are you gonna do? Destroy me with the 4th of July? And then they
Yes.
actually were.
And then she just blasted him in the face and
Yeah.
like it's just, and again Nightcrawler, looking back at the last episode where Nightcrawler does that crazy swords dance.
Oh man,
That
it was
insane.
nuts.
And like Nightcrawler's proving why I love Nightcrawler. And he is just badass.
I didn't even know he was gonna be in this honestly until like he showed up, and
He's so
man,
good.
it was so good.
And we have two German characters. That's a big thing too. Like Magneto and Nightcrawler. I don't understand why they're not nearly as like relatable. But they never seem to like even acknowledge each other. Like it's kind of strange.
Oh my god, but no, like, and honestly, one thing too, right? I'm not trying to like say it's the greatest thing ever, but like, oh man, that animation, like, look at how cool they look. It's so good.
It's amazing. And like also like we have so much character development. And this episode is wild too because like the fight with Magneto is like 20 minutes, not even. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Fight with Bastion's like 10 minutes. It's a 50-minute episode almost, or 40
Yeah,
minute episode.
about like 40 odd.
So you have like half the episode is these fights, and then in the background you have all these really integral things. So I'm just gonna skip ahead to talk about one of the integral things because when Magneto, while they're fighting Bastion, it's like the camera's like going to different locations, showing who's fighting what and what's happening, and people are teaming up against the Sentinels. And the first shot we get, and this is when the power first comes back on, is we get Daredevil, Peter Parker, and Sorcerer Supreme. And like the reason why he's using his magic is because at that point the power's out. So the lights come back on, he's there working. You got Mary
man.
Jane and Peter, which is insane. And I didn't even realize it was Peter when I first saw this.
Yo, I instantly knew.
Yeah, I
That's
did not.
yeah. One thing that I will say, yeah, I was proud of myself because I was like, wait, is that not like Peter Parker and Mary Jane? And I looked around and no one really reacted until after.
Yeah.
But yes, no, this was awesome, man. Just seeing Daredevil too. You guys know I love Daredevil. Just like seeing Daredevil in like the 90s style remastered. Oh my days, it was so good. And then what was cool too about Strange is that we got the reference to Strange in a couple episodes ago from Beast. He heard something and he goes, Strange. They studied that in Comitage. It's like, oh yeah, great wordplay there, Beast.
Yeah, so
and then we actually get him.
Beast's one-liners are deadly.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I had no clue that we were gonna get him in the sense of I thought we were only just gonna get the reference. So when we saw Strange doing his magic, and he is Sorcerer Supreme at this point too, like you said. So I thought that's awesome. You know, we see the cave.
I think one of the reasons why you see Daredevil is he's confirmed to be a mutant. He's mutated. So the Sentinels are attacking him too.
Yeah, I know.
And he's fighting. And then like we also have a pan over back to Genosha, whatever's left of Genosha, and we got part of the X-Force. We got
Oh,
Puck. And
So
Puck
good.
is just this little guy. That's Puck. Like he's a hockey guy.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
And then
just it.
Psylocke, and I don't know who the guy in the background is, but like some really important. He looks like Danny Phantom.
He kind of does.
But like some really important. We've seen Psylocke, but we haven't seen her. Like we've seen her as Morph. We haven't seen her, and here we see this part,
Oh,
which is
man. That's
wild.
so good.
And we're waiting for a Daredevil like cameo, or sorry, not Daredevil, Deadpool, and seeing Puck. He's part of X Force, which
Yeah.
is Deadpool's team, so that kind of relates, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. Bo DeMaio did confirm after the finale that Deadpool was, quote, off limits, which totally makes sense. So we'll take this. We will take it because you could trace it back.
Our next one, because like there's so many cameos, is we get
Oh,
Cloak and Dagger, which I did not expect
Yeah,
at all.
oh,
Daredevil
man.
gets thrown through a window by the Sentinels. Cloak and Dagger show up, which confirm mutants. So cool.
it was so cool, man, because they cut, like, for me, right? Like, I love Daredevil. I'm like, the only person that's going to save Daredevil is, like, the Punisher. So when it was those two that saved him, I was like, dude, this is, like, the greatest thing ever. And they looked so good, too. Really got to emphasize that.
And it was so cool how like Cloak showed, like you just see the cape, like kind of like just like come out of nowhere and like flip, and then all of a sudden Dagger's there, like throwing like daggers, and oh man, it was just so cool.
It, like, I was marking out, as they say.
Yeah.
This was something to where if they said, okay, cool, you know what? Next week we're putting episode 10 in the theaters, like, I could see why. This was like theatrical quality.
insane.
It was so good.
It was wild. Our next cameo, we mentioned it before, which I thought was really important, is
Oh.
this awesome shot of like old Iron Man with Cap.
So good.
So cool. He actually, I don't think Iron Man even spoke.
I don't even know if he did, yeah.
No.
And when
like,
what's cool too is that when you look back at the 90s Iron Man design, it's the exact same. It's like one for
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Just updated graphics, which just look amazing. I saw people online complaining. They're like, I don't get it. Why does Iron Man look weird? He has a six-pack on his suit. I'm like, dude, it was the 90s. Like,
Yeah,
they're not
everyone
going to
had a
change
six-pack.
it, you know? Like, they're not going to change the source material because it looks goofy. They're going to stick it true, and that's one thing that this whole show did. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm like, or pretty awesome, sorry. I'm like, it's interesting that they were able to go back and take so many characters. And legit, like I said, look up Iron Man in the 90s. It's the exact same thing. So I thought that was sick.
And it was wild. Then we got, so now that's the cameos. That's all the cameos we have.
Okay.
And then we kind of, and we'll go back to the picture we had last lineup, and we go back to this shot. So Asteroid M is burning up. We don't know if it's going to be able to survive. We don't know what's going to happen. There's this weird thing between Cable and Jean Grey where he's like, "You're my mom," and then he's like, "You're my mom." And I'm like, "What?" But
Yeah.
she's not.
It was, oh man, their
Yeah.
their development and dynamic as the Summers family has just been so good to see.
Yeah.
And this one hit. So as Eldon just said, we didn't know if Asteroid M was gonna survive, if they were gonna survive on it. And at this point, Scott has said, you know what? I'm sacrificing myself. I'm gonna be the one that dies. Everyone else is gonna get saved. And at this point, he asked Jean to do this with their telepathy and go say goodbye to Cable. And like pretty much says, you know what, son, like this is it. Like,
What
it's
a
done.
powerful and then he takes his goggles off, and Jean makes it so that you can see his eyes, and it's
So
the
good.
same eyes that Cable has.
So good. It was the exact same.
And
I was
he's like, and then also too, like one of the points, I just want to go back when they were first departing, and they were going to Asteroid M, and Cable was going to fight Sinister. He's like, "You're gonna tell me, you know, you love me, you're proud of me?" And he's like, "No, give him hell." And I was like, "Okay."
and now you have them again, and it's like, look, son, this is the end. And then he said something like, you know, the stories that I've heard so many stories about my folks in the future, and honestly, they just don't do it justice. And this part was cool too, because this specifically, the moment at the picture is Cable was mad. He's like, it should have been me that was fighting by your guy's side. I should have been there. And Jean puts the hand on his hand and just goes, but you were here with us. Like, this is our moment where we win, and you were here. And he kind of realizes, oh yeah, like I did make it. I did get a fight alongside my parents for like the first time. And it was like, it was so powerful. It was like really good. For some extra context too, he does mention that he tried this mission 200 times. So they
Yeah.
finally win. So for him, yes, he might have had different fights with the parents, but this was definitely the one where he was the most involved from what I could tell.
And this is the one where he's alive still. Like they all make it out, well, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And one of the parts is like Cyclops apologizes for leaving him. He's like, I never said goodbye to you, and that wasn't fair. He's like, my dad did the same thing. And I forgot his dad was Corsair.
Yep.
And I forgot Corsair was a mutant too.
Yep.
Like, Corsair was so cool. So I was like, oh, his parents are dead. I can't remember who they are. It was Corsair. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, then I think Catherine Summers is the mom, who's like awesome
like,
as well.
Okay, so the Summers family is incredible. But this is a huge thing where you have him apologizing, and like, this is my redemption for Cyclops. He's going to sacrifice himself. He's going to cut Asteroid M apart with his vision. He's just running through Asteroid M, blasting things at this point.
Yeah.
And then things get a little strange.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, and just that whole scene alone did a lot to me when we were watching it. But yeah, so just to continue with it though, it was looking like it was grim. It was over. We didn't really know what was going to happen because Asteroid M just kept falling and falling, and then Storm and Rogue and Sunspot, they were outside of the asteroid trying to stop it. No one could. They were on the ground and everyone just accepted defeat. And then I know we brought it up earlier, but then Magneto awakened. So
he wakes up though and he kind of stops it, and then everyone disappears.
He yells Magneto lives, and then he alone, because remember they're trying, but he alone just puts it the other way. Everyone's cheering. It's like your typical American war story. It's like, yeah, let's go, we did it. And it's like, well, no, you guys didn't do anything. You guys caused all of this. Actually, it was us, the mutants, that did something. And then, like Eldin said, everyone disappears. So
Asteroid M disappears too, which is hilarious.
I know.
Where they end up, you think would just is it there now?
Yeah. So yeah, the X-Men they're gone. It's done.
Yeah.
We did not get the happy ending. We are left with a couple, as Forge is still there. We see Beast. Beast is not even there.
No, so I think we'll put up a picture now to show. So Forge is hanging out in the X-Men mansion, and Bishop shows up.
Yeah.
And Bishop and Forge is like, get out of here. I don't know who you are. And he's like, I fought with you lots of times, Forge. He's like, no, you haven't. I guess I have. It's a very strange situation.
It's funny. So yeah, so
and after this shot.
Yeah, oh man, it was so good. It was so good.
So everyone who's been crossed out. So we have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Beast, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, Sunspot, which I think just says Roberto, Xavier, Morph, Rogue,
and Wolverine.
Archangel is there, I guess.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Wolverine and Cable. They're all listed as, lost, like without reason. Archangel, we thought was dead, but apparently not. And you see Pietro and you see Scarlet Witch, and that just says off-world.
Oh man,
which is okay. Where are they? That's wild.
Cable says AWOL. He's the only one that says AWOL.
Yes,
which
Cable,
I guess makes sense.
He's somewhere.
Yeah. They also did make reference to at the start that I don't think Cable and Bishop are ever together, like ever. Because remember, there's even
except when he takes him back.
Yeah,
the first time.
Except that, yeah. Because they even say at one point that he's like, yeah, Bishop got lost in the timeline. So with Bishop being there, I'm like, yeah, no, it makes sense that Cable's gone. We do have some hitters, though, that are confirmed there. We're going to have to start off with Havoc, the guy that I mentioned all season, all series. As soon as I saw this board, I just yelled, Havoc, yes.
The Summer brothers are there.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
So we got Havoc next to his nephew, actually. Which I didn't even really take that all in. But yeah, Cable's right there. So there you go.
And then Iceman.
Bobby. Love Iceman.
Probably one of the strongest mutants, period.
And he's an OG in this as well.
Yes,
he's on the wall, so that's pretty cool.
Colossus.
Oh,
and
man.
his sister Magic.
Love that.
Which we saw Magic earlier. And Colossus Morphus turned into both of them, which is wild.
we see Emma Frost.
I've never seen before in Dust.
Dust is the blonde, right?
Nope, Dust is in between Rogue and Archangel.
There she is. Yeah, Dust, I'm not
She's got like the power to control like sand, which is really cool. I looked her up. Shadowcat, who I was like, I don't know who Shadowcat is. And then Justin informed me that it was Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought her name was just Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, though, because she has her, like, OG 90s costume on there.
Again, as you said, Emma Frost.
Who now has two powers, because remember, she
has
awakens.
the diamond skin.
Oh, man, it was so good when she got the diamond skin. And like, that shot was crazy.
I can't read the other guy's name. In between...
Exodus?
Exodus, yeah.
Yep.
which I've never seen him before either.
X has a crazy, like, here's one thing too, right? I looked this up. I forget word for word, but we'll look this up after or during the break. He has a crazy mutant power, and people online are like, dude, where was Exodus during this? And I'm like, yeah, where was Exodus?
So
That's what I want to know.
Colossus magic. We didn't see them in the fight because like when they pan over to Russia, again, it's Crimson Dynamo and Omega Red fighting.
Yeah.
You don't see Colossus and magic, so where are they?
Yep. I wonder where Bobby is, to be honest.
Yeah,
like, in every adaptation of X-Men that he's in and present in, he's so prominent, like you mentioned. So he's confirmed to be alive. Maybe he fell out. Maybe he just got too old. Because remember, he is an OG. So maybe he's like,
Well, here's my thing. So all the OG X-Men are missing, presumed dead. And then I can't remember what it said for Jubilee and Roberto. Because it doesn't say missing or presumed dead. It says something else, but I can't read it because of...
Oh, yeah. I forget too. It's... Oh man, yeah. Does it just say no? It doesn't say AWOL, or does it? I can't
might
tell.
say. Oh, it might say AWOL actually, because that's what it looks like. Cable
For Cable, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is so. Maybe Jubilee and Roberto are kicking.
Yeah.
Because they would, and also at one point Jubilee's flying around in space and breathing.
Yeah. Did I tell you the explanation to that or no?
No.
Okay, so in Marvel, oh yeah, you weren't here when I told them this. Okay, so in Marvel, there's a place called the quote blue side of the moon. So pretty much, there's a civilization that used to live there. And on top of things, Kang was there at one point. So it's actually a quote breathable space or breathable planet in space type thing.
Oh, okay.
So it was weird, yes.
Yeah.
But like it's another thing that, you know, fair play to the writers. Like how did you just put the blue side of the moon? No explanation. But like if you knew, you knew.
Is this like the Inhumans that live there?
I think so. I'm not.
Also ties into the Inhumans, which is really
It
cool.
does, yeah. I have to look into it more, but yeah, it's called the blue side of the moon. It's cool, like dark side, blue side, and yeah, so it is a breathable part, which like it's cool. I like when they do stuff like that because they don't need to explain it to you. If you were like some super diehard Marvel fan, you probably caught it out. I didn't, so I had to look it up, and it made sense afterwards. But yeah, that was funny though, just seeing a space fight and they could all breathe.
Yeah, and Jubilee's like hanging out. I'm like, Jubilee can't breathe in the atmosphere. Like Roberto, yes, makes sense.
Yeah, that was jokes.
And then we get kind of like an end credit scene almost.
Okay, yeah.
And I think we'll do the end credit scene. We can go to a break, and then we'll come back and wrap up. So the end credit scene, we get the X-Men displaced.
Yes.
People went to the future. People went to the past. And our first person is, you could say, the Summers family just keeps on growing.
So we get this hooded gal over here with her little braid. Eldin, if you want to tell us who is this?
Mother Oksani, who is Rachel Summers, who is the daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey. So that's the confirmed daughter, Cable's half sister.
And this is from 3600 AD.
Yeah, in the future. So this in part in the future, and here's the theme: Apocalypse rules the world. So you see Mother Oksani. She's like, I can't remember what she said. She's like, you know, whatever kind are far from home. And then you get this little gentleman walking out in his little hat, and he's like, I sense no reason to be afraid. And that is little baby Cable.
Oh, like how? Like, oh man,
you can see his hair too.
Yep.
His hair's got and again in this timeline, Cable is prophesized to beat Apocalypse.
Yep.
Which you've been seeing every single opener when it's Cable fighting Apocalypse.
Yep.
And that's juiced up Apocalypse. That's Apocalypse in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Which is
we get this awesome shot. So that alone sets us up. Summers are in the future with their kids. I thought was wild. You have the half siblings hanging out, doing their best. Then you pan over to the past, and this is the wild thing. Okay?
Egypt.
And we had Egypt and Okara, which is a living island in Egypt. And you see some weird snake-headed men fighting somebody. And the X-Men are kind of like, okay, Rogue comes in and starts bashing them, and like Beast is carrying Professor Xavier around, Nightcrawler's there, and Magneto. And Magneto's like finally like, enough. And he just like throws the guys away. And then you have this thing where Professor Xavier's like, hey, you know, who's this hooded figure? You know, can you tell us your name?
We had like goosebumps.
And then we get this shot of, what's your name? And Sabanur.
Oh, it was so good because, oh my god, I was like, oh my day. So I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, we're going back to Egypt. There's only one or two people that matter here, and it's either Kang the Conqueror or it's Apocalypse. And when he takes off the hood and you see the like the mouth and the blue, and he's like, my name is N7, and then it turns back to the X-Men and they're like shook. I was like, it just gives me goosebumps thinking about it. They're like, no.
Yeah.
And then it does another shot, which I should have got a photo of, and you see Egypt, I guess, advance. Okara advance. Nuts. So it's almost like, oh my God, which one are you more intrigued about, the past or the future? Days of Future Past. But but it's so good. And like I will say, N7 Noor's like intro of like, you know what, I'm N7 Noor. It's actually top 10 in Marvel. I don't know if there's another moment where I saw a character get revealed and I felt the way I did. It's like comparable to when they announced Thanos, or like I don't even know. It was just up there. It was so good.
Because then we pan over to present day Genosha, and we have this shot of so much death.
It was so good because he's holding Gambit's card, and we all know that this is Apocalypse himself in present day.
Present day Apocalypse, who's been a mainstay villain. So much death.
So good.
And we knew that Remy LeBeau was going to be the Horseman of Death. So,
man, what a finale!
Yeah.
It was peak. It was amazing.
And that's what it ends. It's like so much death, so much destruction, and then
to be continued.
And then boom, gone.
It was so good. It was everything we wanted and more. And just to like not really go out on a tangent, but yeah, just those last 10 minutes, peak X-Men. I don't know of a Marvel last 10 minutes. Like it's comparable to the Avengers, if I'm gonna be honest.
Because we got the Avengers in this. We got the Avengers. We got a lot more than we expected.
It reminded me why I became a Marvel fan, and I've said this before. As a 2000s kid, you started with Spider-Man and the X-Men. It wasn't the Avengers till I got older, and it's like it reminded me of the Cyclopses and the Storms and the Jeans and the Wolverines, and it was like, yes, this is why I'm a fan. And it wasn't just the movies; it was the TV shows, it was the video games, it was the action figures. It's like this is why I became a fan of Marvel, and it was the best X-Men adaptation to date.
Oh, I'd say 100%.
And it was so good. I don't care if you're, in and around our ages. I don't care if you're younger, if you're older. You will enjoy this. I'm giving it 10 out of 10. I think, Eldin, you're giving it the same.
Yeah,
it was
I'm gonna say
so
bring
good.
Back Bo.
BBB.
Bring
back Bo. I'm with it.
Yeah.
It was so good. It's amazing. I think that just about covers all from the finale, because we do still have time to talk about future, I guess, predictions, discussions, because season 2 is confirmed. We know that, and it's going to be awesome. So that was just our thoughts and opinions and everything else in between on X-Men 97's finale. After the music break, Eldin and I will be swapping, and Eldin will give us some of his takes that he has about season 2, some predictions and discussions. Like I said, don't forget you can follow us on social media at D6A Media Hub, and we're gonna play you some more X-Men themes here going to the music break. So coming back to you guys soon for more X-Men.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Screen Chat, only on RiotRadio.ca and all our other affiliations, and YouTube, which I'm going to cut this up so we can put it on YouTube. My name's Eldin. I'm swapping in now. Justin's behind the scenes. Thank you, Justin, as always. So we're going to talk about the future of X-Men.
Oh, man, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for this.
I did a lot of research in the last couple of days. It was a lot of brainstorming. I looked up a lot of stuff. So to start us off, we're going to jump right into it, though. We're thinking, this is my thing to Justin, okay? Who is going to be the next villain of the X-Men universe? We got this lovely shot. As you can see, some of my favorite characters, Justin and I were talking about Sabretooth. You got Madeline Pryor, which she's confirmed dead, but also maybe not. Sinister is still there, Magneto, and then the big ones that I'm kind of like, okay, we've seen Mojo, the weird dude in the chair. We haven't seen Juggernaut at all. We've seen Apocalypse. We haven't seen Jean Grey as the bad Phoenix Force. And then some Sentinel guy. So, I don't really know.
Yeah, this is a great shot. I know we were discussing this the last couple of days. Oh, man. For me, Sabretooth is the most intriguing just because of everything we discussed about his history with Wolverine and different adaptations, comics, and movies. Juggernaut's another one where we saw him as Morph. However, I do want to see Charles' half-brother in the flesh. Mojo's an interesting take too, just because I didn't realize how prominent of a villain they were.
He is so annoying.
Yeah,
too.
until I watched 97 and did other research, and then this shot, like, he's in it.
Well, that's where is this Starfire? The guy from Deadpool 2, the alien who's like, I'm just better at you than everything.
Yep, I think that's
right. And he's from the Mojoverse, so
which is like pretty cool. And like I didn't even know that till I watched this. Sinister's like, he's Sinister, you know, like
he's always gonna be there.
Always gonna be there. Yeah. But this shot alone, could you imagine this in X-Men 97 as like a bad dream or something? Because at this point I don't think we will get this specific shot.
No.
However,
well, we've already had Sinister, Madeline Pryor, and Magneto as villains, we'll say, and even Mojo if you want to go that far. We haven't seen, I think that's supposed to be Master Mold or some sort of crazy Sentinel, but we haven't seen, like, the Sentinels were played out. We haven't seen Apocalypse. We've seen Apocalypse at the end, and like we know it's Apocalypse.
Yep.
This is kind of more for like a think tank. We know it's gonna be Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I'll put money on it being Apocalypse. Is the main villain of season 2.
I hadn't, like, as much of an X-Men fan I am, it stems from the Fox movies. So I didn't really understand the magnitude of Apocalypse till I realized I played X2 United, which was the Apocalypse game. And then on top of it too, this series and adaptation of X-Men really gives you a different Apocalypse than the Fox does. I love Oscar Isaac, but it's not this. It's not. And when you look at comic book panels in comparison to X-Men 97, it's like, wow, his design is so cool. It's like a 1-to-1. So with that being said, I'm really excited for Apocalypse to make his return next season, because he's just going to be such a force.
So with that being said, Apocalypse's whole MO is survival of the fittest. He's a biotechnological creature. We know he's gonna bond the adamantium back to Wolverine, which might get him to be the Horseman of War. We know Gambit's gonna be Horseman of Death, and then Pestilence and Famine will be interesting. I think probably we'll see Rogue and maybe Storm. I'm gonna put that there, Rogue and Storm. Really cool though. We're getting the Horseman of the Apocalypse. We have to. I think we're gonna get 4 versions of Horseman of the Apocalypse.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it's, oh man, the concept of the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse, we've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. It's crazy. If you want, I could even pull up now the one Horseman, you have.
Yeah. So this picture is from the Horsemen of Death. Now this is from the Children of Apocalypse, the Apocalypse twins. So we have, in this comic, you see the 2 characters with like the lights on them. That's the children of Archangel, who takes over as Apocalypse. And then the woman between the 2 of them is Izumi, something like that. So she's the Horseman of Famine. Then we have probably the coolest. These are just titled the Horsemen of Death, because they've all passed away at this point. And we have Banshee back. We have not Wolverine, but Daken, his son, Sentry, and then Grim Reaper. Well, I don't know Grim Reaper. I don't know why he's there. He's not a mutant from what I've seen. He's the brother of Wonder Man, and canonically he's the half brother of Vision. So,
which is nuts.
Yeah. So Grim Reaper's there for some reason, but then, like, again, we saw Banshee die.
Yep.
We haven't seen Daken yet, but we have seen the samurai from Japan, which means Wolverine's been getting around there. So we know maybe he has a kid somewhere.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen Sentry yet, who's schizophrenic Superman.
Sentry is the one that intrigues me the most, because he's like an untouchable hero in the MCU, or character in the MCU. We don't see him, and I've only really seen him in like the Lego games and some I guess animated adaptations. Seeing him in the blue and black of Apocalypse as a Horseman of Death is scary, man.
Cool.
It's awesome. This is actually like, and I know the last couple of weeks we did discuss different comics on this show. This is probably my favorite panel that I've seen in the last couple shows that we've done.
He's an
it's so good.
Yeah.
And Daken just looks so cool, man, because when you look at it, you might think it's Wolverine, but it's the two claws. So you know it's Daken, which is, oh man.
And Daken is technically like a better Wolverine in some comics, depends on where you look. So that's one theory we have. Again, this is the Apocalypse twins, so this happens way in the future, but that kind of idea of like, again, Banshee's dead. Banshee might come back. Sentry, also look him up. Sentry's crazy. He's crazy. We're Sentry, and then his bipolar half is the Void, which is an evil version of him.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Oh my god.
And then I wanted to talk about the past. So I did some research. Jess and I were talking about this pretty much since last week. So the X-Men in the past now have Eb and Sabanur. So little apocalypse, and I got a picture of what happens in the past. So this is from a comic with the Brood. Now the Brood is basically like Marvel's version of aliens from like the Alien franchise. They go around the galaxy consuming everything. They reproduce by laying eggs in people, so they're very creepy. And sometimes the eggs that hatch from people have their powers. So you get all kinds of crazy monsters. But in the background, so we have Imhotep, who's not a mutant, but he creates the Brotherhood of the Sword and the Shield, which I'm not entirely sure if that coexists with Shield. That becomes Shield later on. And in the background, we see En Sabanur. And next to him is Moon Knight.
Yeah, this shot is amazing. We like Eldin mentioned, we were talking about this throughout the week, and he showed me this, and I'm pretty sure when we saw this, we were looking at it to be like, okay, cool, it's the Brood versus I forget the guy's name in the middle.
Imhotep.
Yeah. And then we were like, oh wait,
that's Apocalypse.
That's Apocalypse. So we're definitely going to use that. And oh man, I love the lore and continuity that Moon Knight has, because we have seen him in live action. Funny enough, it's also Oscar Isaac. Yeah. But it's pretty cool that in this scene, he's there. And it makes sense. It's not like he's just there to be there. Yeah. It fully makes sense why Moon Knight would be in this kind of setting.
That's Moon Knight. It's not Moon Knight beside Apocalypse. See the guy with the staff that looks like a moon next to Imhotep on the left.
Yep,
that's him.
You can fully see him there
with the crest.
And it's like cool that Imhotep is going in this battle with Sabanur and then Moon Knight.
Yeah,
and it makes
heroes.
Sense.
Yeah,
it's not like this is some fan servicey, poorly written comic. If you were to ask, like, I guess 5 Marvel fans, where would Moon Knight be? It's Egypt. We know that. Yep. So ancient Egypt battle, Moon Knight, Apocalypse, and Imhotep. Insane.
And the wild thing is too, so we have the X-Men in the past now. We have Magneto, we've got Rogue, Nightcrawler, Professor X, and Beast all in the past. So are we going to see them dealing with the Brood? Which I think is going to be wild.
I think we might.
Yeah.
In the sense of, like you just mentioned, they're in the past, they're in Egypt. We have En Sabanur. We, fingers crossed, have Imhotep. I feel like Rama-Tut, who's Kang the Conqueror.
Who's also weirdly like the son of Reed Richards. But
which is
doesn't
another
make sense
discussion.
In some things. Yeah.
It was cool though, because just while we leave this up before I go back to you, when we saw Egypt, in my mind, I'm like, this is in 97. I'm like, oh my God, Kang the Conqueror. It has to be. Yeah. Like, it has to be Kang. And with En Sabanur, I think, like I said to you too, he gets that name from Kang.
Yeah.
How do you say
in his likeness?
In his likeness, yeah. How do you say Kang's Egyptian name again?
I think it's just Rama-Tut.
Rama-Tut, yeah. So it's Rama-Tut that dubs him En Sabanur in his likeness. So I think it's pretty cool that X-Men is diving into a universe where we could see this exact panel plus more characters
and we've seen
in a
the Watcher
realistic
too.
state.
We've seen the Watcher in the past episodes, so I would not be surprised if we got a crazy crossover. And like I think we have one more picture left, which is a possible other villain for either the future or for present day. And it's a long shot, but this is probably one of my favorite characters. I think his name is William. Just William, but he's AKA Genocide. And they kind of changed his name recently because, you know, what's going on in the world of the world. But Genocide is so cool. He's the son of Apocalypse. He fights Archangel, and Archangel's missing. So Archangel's missing, presumed dead. So I would not be surprised if we got Archangel as at the end of the season, we get Archangel as the new Apocalypse, and we get to see William. And this guy's a monster.
Dude, this panel looks so cool. Like, I don't really know a lot about William Wolfson. Wolfson. I tried to get the name.
He has to wear that suit because he puts off like radioactive energy. So he has to wear that suit to protect everyone around him because he will just wipe people out.
He looks like a cybernetic Ghost Rider.
Honestly, yeah.
That's the best way I could put it. And it'll be interesting to see his future dynamic. I know you said it's a long shot, but I feel like with some things they have to connect. If we do get the Archangel and we do get Archangel taking over as Apocalypse, which is, very realistic, you almost need this character. It wouldn't make sense without him. So this might be a long shot, but it's not even that bad of a take. Like I could see this happening too. So this is, we have a lot that could go on in X-Men Season 2, and I feel like you checked all the boxes with these.
Yeah, because again, we were at the Apocalypse. For future, I don't know what's going to happen with the future. That's the one thing I didn't touch on was the future. We know that Cable is going to beat Apocalypse. That's the whole thing. Mother Oksani is from technically the timeline of before the X-Men leave, but in some ones she's from 619111 or something like that. So she's from a different multiverse. I kind of hope we don't get into the whole multiverse thing. I'm cool with multiple timelines, not multiverse. Like Loki, it was all timelines, not multiverse. It was them kind of stopping the multiverse and keeping it as one timeline. So I'd like to see what happens. Justin, any final thoughts on what we've been talking about today?
Yeah, you know what? Just like on this specific discussion here, it's gonna be crazy the season 2, I guess, plot, because the possibilities are endless. It's gonna be wild. You could I guess dive deep into so many characters that we've only seen for a matter of seconds. Whether it's Ensabanor, Rachel Summers, future Nathan, even go one further and you go like Cloak and Dagger and the X-Force, like they're confirmed to be here. There's so much that they could do with this show, and like I said, everything that they've introduced makes sense. We didn't just get Daredevil for the sake of, we didn't just get Cloak and Dagger for the sake of. No, like
we're queuing up for House of M.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's a House of M story there. There's a potential onslaught there that we got kind of teased at that could still happen. There's the Apocalypse in the past, Apocalypse in the future, Rachel, eventual Nathan, maybe Strife, who knows. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
And Strife's one of the Horsemen. Just want to touch on. He's one of the Horsemen in the future.
Yeah. So there's a lot that they could do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when you do a multiple choice, it's like option A, B, or C. It's like, no, you take option D, which is all of the above. So it's going to be great. These are some great predictions. And I was really excited that we were able to finally talk about X-Men 97 after putting it off for about a month. So this was really good.
So good. So I think with that being said, I'm done with everything I was going to say. Justin, I think you're good.
Thank you guys once again for tuning in and listening. Very happy to do this as always.
That was fantastic.
Thank you, Eldin, today for the help.
Always happy to help. So with that being said, you've been watching Screen Chat, only on RiotRadio.ca and all of our other affiliations. My name's Eldin Atkin. Behind the scenes is Justin Atkins. No relation. And with that being said, we're going to hop on to our last song, which I think is just the end credit scene, or end credit song. So with that being said, thanks again to everybody out watching, and we will see you next time on Screen Chat for probably more stuff about the Acolyte. And I did want to mention just, young Sheldon as well. So with that being said, peace out, see you later, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.